To Sarge's recap. Tonight I am joined by my faithful friend that I'm not sure why he puts up with my repeated breaking and enterings of his home, Philosopher King.
Hey, I'm Phil. That's it. That's all I've got. Bye,
And we are going to be talking to you about, well, it's going to be about the T-72. Ukraine's probably going to get involved. So let's,
well, we know Russia certainly got involved.
until it didn't. It's not involved with the T-72 anymore.
And pardon my coughing, I am coming out of being sick. And
So,
other such noises you may hear. Go on, sorry.
let's get into why I'm making this video. Well, we can blame whiskey, and we can blame Christmas evening discussions with my family. It's Christmas Day, never mind Christmas Day discussions with my family.
Actually, no, it is 12 a.m. It is no longer Christmas.
Merry December 26th to you fuckers.
Correct. Anyway.
And I noticed that among the 3 historians in my family, myself included, we all kind of had some misconceptions about the T-72. Now, before we get started, I'm not claiming to be a fucking expert on Russian main battle tanks made in the fucking 60s.
You better not.
Actually, it would probably be more fitting to say former main battle tanks made in the fucking 60s. Because, yeah, we'll get there. Just give us a minute. When I hit you with the "we'll get there" line, you know it's gonna be a stream.
It's gonna be something.
I hope so. So just where is my Ukrainian flag to put on my T-72 to piss off any pro-Russian that might be left? I doubt there are any.
Oh, trust me, there's a lot. I know, I have met quite a few of them when I worked at the gas station.
Alright, so now that we got this T-72 properly decked out, because, yes. What you're seeing on screen is World of Tanks Cold War, by the way. This is the T-72 Euro. It was on sale, still is. It's like, I don't know how much for whatever country or state you're in, but it's on sale. That's a
when
thing that can
converted to
happen.
funny money from freedom dollars, it's about yay much.
There you go.
I'm good at money conversions, as you could very easily tell. I'm good at what I do.
So, speaking on why I keep saying former when it comes to Russia and T-72. Well, it's because I'm not going to say they don't have any. It's very likely they have some left. But from what I can tell, they have moved to start using like the T-90 and T-80U and that shit. Which is very confusing because they can't remake those.
Yeah, they no longer have the ability to manufacture them because they don't get the parts in from nations that would normally give them to them or produce them for them because, well, let's face it, they've made an enemy of about everybody that gave a shit about them before.
And now China has a more public reason to hate them than fighting over resources in Africa. Oh, that's right, China.
Stated... Go ahead.
That's right, China. You didn't think you were getting out of this one, did ya?
Yes, even though China has stated several times, and I think also a few days ago, that they publicly approve of the war Russia is fighting, and that the reason why they're publicly saying, oh yeah, let's do this, go Russia, is because it gives them an excuse to possibly go after Taiwan in the future. which I actually want to see because that'd be fucking hilarious.
Oh, that would be so one-sided.
Oh yeah,
But so here's the gist of it. The T-72 is a MBT or main battle tank class that was developed in the 1960s. Variants, they kind of went everywhere. So there's variants as made as late as the early 2000s and as early as 1972. Yes, T-72 variant was made in 1972. Har har. But the problem is a lot of people think they're failing in Ukraine because the Russian T-72s are just getting shit on. Or I don't know. I'd say there are probably still a few regiments that are operating some T-72s on the Russian side. I wouldn't be surprised.
well, I do know that as of yesterday, there was a very recent video on our combat footage on Reddit of mechanized Ukrainian battalion or something going up against Russian forces. They had several BMP types and at least one T-72 variant, which was destroyed. But, you know, they at least seem to have at least some of them operating in some capacity.
Now, okay, before I get into this, just note, anything we say about the war in Ukraine, that is a ever-evolving conflict.
Oh, yes.
So, what we know as truth today could be lies tomorrow. War propaganda is a bitch, especially if you're a historian trying to put together what the fuck is happening.
Thankfully, we live in a digital age where videos and shit are abundant. So, even if a lot of it's propaganda, a lot of truth can be gleaned from them as well.
Yes.
And there's also civilian footage, thankfully.
Well, I'd rather the civs not be involved in this, but,
I mean, well, that's what happens when Russia invades a sovereign nation. They go straight to the civilians.
Yeah. Which, if this devolves into me shitting on Russia in the Ukraine war, which is very possible because I have thoughts, I would apologize, but I'm not really going to. So you know what? Just kind of deal with whatever comes, guys. You signed up for this stream.
And just a disclaimer, this is not Russophobia. This is, Putinphobia? Even though phobia means fear, in this case, it means disgust. Kind of like how homophobes don't fear gays, they are disgusted by them.
Oh, no. There are plenty of Christian homophobes that I would very much say are afraid. Like, they had a little bit of gay panic when they were 13, and they never got over that. I'm comfortable in saying that.
We do not hate
tank
Russians.
Tank destroyer.
Did you get him?
No, I missed.
Well, T-72 for everybody. Alright, end the stream. Anyway, we do not hate Russians. In fact, I myself love Russian history and the Russian people, and hope one day to be able to visit them when they're not ruled by assholes and oligarchs.
He wants to return to his people. He identifies as real Russian, not Putinist.
That's a good way to put it. But hopefully one day the Russian people can be freed from all this bullshit. And I know America isn't all that great either when it comes to leadership and shit, but at the very least we have some capacity to decide who leads us, and I hope one day the Russian people get that chance as well. Anyway, T-72, for its time, it was a decent tank and a decent platform.
I mean, to be quite honest with you, it still kind of is. When you're not trying to use it like an idiot, like I was.
Precisely.
Oh, hey, that vehicle's actually amphibious. I think that's kind of cool. But so let's start off with what a MBT is and what role they fulfill on the battlefield. This might be a little different than you people might be thinking. MBT class tanks typically mean main battle tank, though some nations use a different term, MET, or main engagement tank.
Well, that's an interesting term. I've never heard that before.
MBT kind of just sounds better.
I love MBT. I don't know why it just rolls off the tongue.
This would take over what was the unified classification of heavy tank, or it would actually combine heavy and super heavy. Which, funnily enough, brings us to the weight of the T-72, which is the first reason why the Russian T-72s aren't doing very good in Ukraine.
Mud
Let me explain.
plus T-72 equals mud tank.
No.
No?
Yes and no. It's complicated. Let me explain. So the T-72, or at least the base model, weighs 40 tons. This is kind of light, especially for an MBT, which it has a crew of 3 and lighter armor than other MBTs in class. Looking at the Merkava and the Abrams. Yes, I am trying very hard not to compare it to the Leopard. I am damn sure I will fail by the end of the stream.
By the way, all the times I go into the mic, that means I'm becoming very aroused at what he is saying, which is mostly going to be because of tanks, but who knows? We'll see what the stream holds for us.
Subtle click of a knife.
Yeah, why do you think what
Oh, and just like that, the PG rating is gone.
PG rating? Player game. Yes, that's what PG stands for.
Okay. I'm just gonna say you're right. I don't care.
Thank you. Finally.
So at 40 tons is something that we'll get into the armor view here in a minute, because it's kind of funny. I'm using World of Tanks because I don't have armor
simulation.
I don't have armor spreadsheets on hand. This is realistic enough that it will give us a good idea. I'm not saying it's totally realistic, put your fucking pitchforks down. It is just realistic enough that I can use it. Major difference.
Who would have thought that World of Tanks would have been a realistic simulation of real life tanks?
I know, right?
Say it is so.
So, first of all, some T-72s, and this one does actually kind of show it, have some spaced armor. These are typically put over key points on the tracks, or they are typically made into track skirts to try to protect the tank from being detracked. That would increase the weight, which, given the T-72's wide tracks, actually would help it. The base model 40 tons, it doesn't actually have enough weight to use its tracks to go through deep mud, which is why sometimes it will get stuck. The Ukrainians, living pretty much in this kind of condition year-round, no doubt have found ways to either circumvent or just not fucking use the T-72 in the deep-ass mud. For today's battlefield, a 125mm gun, not bad. It definitely would pose a threat to most things, at least being fielded by both sides of the conflict in this particular war. You get things like the Markava, the Leopard, the KF-51 Panther. Then you're kind of reaching, but you could still do some damage. And that kind of brings me to where I say the Russians were using this wrong, and that this is actually primarily why they are getting killed in Ukraine when it comes to like losing a shitload of tanks. The T-72,
or in most cases, abandoning their tanks.
Yes. The T-72 is not this. it's not a super long range tank or a super short range tank. It's meant for a medium engagement distance. Mind you, medium engagement distance, 1,800 meters is kind of what we're rocking. That's standard sighting for almost any tank of the time. I know the M60 did it. I'm sure the T-72 did it. I know the Chieftain did it. I know the Conaventer, fucking British, did it in World War II.
Very interesting name that was. Almost sounded like cunnilingus.
You just gotta pop in and say random ass shit when you feel like it.
You bet your sweet ass I am.
I'm glad.
Now, on the topic of the T-72, especially the most common, uh, pardon me, the most common variant out there, what would be the best way for an infantry squad to combat it when they have maybe only light arms or small explosives like grenades?
Well,
if they're forced to fight it.
Taking into account, first of all, before I say what the best way, at least in my mind, would be to take one of these things on. T-72s don't have great electronics packaging. It's very possible to, if you can get past the visual scopes of the commander and driver and gunner, that you very well could get past the kind of visual defenses, as it were, and use a hand grenade maybe to try to blow off a track or light it on fire with a Molotov or something of that nature. But before all that, avoidance is key. If you don't have an anti-tank weapon, don't go picking a fight with a tank. Still has that 12.5 millimeter machine gun, still has that 125 millimeter cannon, and it can run your ass over, and they do. As a matter of fact, T-72s have, we'll say, a lot of experience with that. Now, are you ready, kids?
I think I just now got the reference you were making with that tank bit.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Ouch. Someday. Continue.
So I want to say how the Ukrainians, at least from what I've seen, have been using them. They haven't been deploying them en masse. They've been used as vanguards to defend either key strategic points, key strategic units, or just helping push in their own thunder runs. They have lost a fair number of T-72s themselves doing that. The fact is that the T-72 is an antiquated tank on a modern battlefield. It's going to be facing threats it was never designed to counter, because those threats didn't exist. This is not a bad tank by any stretch of anyone. They made like 25,000, I think way more than 25,000. But that's a number that sticks in my head about them, because I remember reading that they had 25,000, maybe it was like 25,000 actively in service. But that's kind of where you get that they have thousands of these things that they can just keep throwing at the front line. Russia, due to poor vehicle maintenance, does not have that. Also, they sold, when I say they sold a lot of these things, I mean they sold a lot. So, Phil, before we go any further with our little thought experiments. What would you say would be the best way for you to implement a T-72 to combat a T-72?
Could you repeat that last part?
If you were in a T-72, how would you fight another T-72?
Well, that's an interesting question, actually. So, I'm by no means an expert on armored warfare. Just a heads up to everybody. Or anybody.
Yeah, neither one of us are. We're just...
But I haven't had to think of military strategy in a minute. Hang on. So the T-72 obviously was never a fantastic tank in the first place. It was meant to be a mass-produced model to overrun and overpower Western main battle tanks because they could just produce that many at the time. So T-72 versus T-72, hello cat. Which, in all actuality, that's exactly what's been going on for quite a minute. I would probably use it if I'm fighting a Russian tank crew. It's almost a guarantee that they will try and take a position advantageous to them instead of trying to move around and fight their enemy, because that's not their general strategies. Their strategy is to try and hit them from a distance and eliminate them before they can get close. So my best bet would probably be to put everything I could into flying around them and getting around their turret rotation speed and hit them from the side or the back. That's how I would try and combat a T-72 instead of a T-72.
Now, the funny thing about that is Russian doctrine is very much overwhelm and destroy. What I am doing with the T-72 right now, picking targets off from a further distance, this would be more akin to what you would see. Oh,
yeah,
that's
my cat is being very, very annoying right now.
That is a M68 That is
Get your butt
problematic.
Yeah, I love you, but you're being very annoying. There we go. Sorry, continue.
Ooh, you're fine. I'm in a gunfight with a whole lot of tanks. The thing about it is it's going to come down, one, to the experience and familiarity of the tank to the crew.
These rounds are having no effect.
Good Lord Almighty, I am just doing nothing. Cover my own advance a little bit, I guess. So the main I don't want to say problem with the T-72, but this is kind of the problem, is this was very much the I'm not here to be the best tank on the battlefield. I have 25 million buddies that are gonna overrun you. The tank thunder runs that Russia did early on in Ukraine, very indicative of their own doctrine with it, and Ukraine using it in a more Western sense. Just this kind of confuses me. And Phil, please chime in if you can figure out the answer, is because they're using them more sparingly, they're engaging at longer distances, they're, not just rushing them onto the front line. People seem to think that that is indicative of NATO crew training, when that's just using something more sparingly, because let's face it, right now, I doubt Russia would sell to you.
In the beginning of the war, Ukraine was very much not a modern military. They were using equipment that was just old Soviet equipment, much like every other nation that used to be a part of the old Iron Curtain, which is not unusual. It's most nations there just never had the funds or need to expand their military spending and modernize. But now, in the beginning of the war, Ukraine did lose, did lose quite a bit of men, resources, and vehicles. But once it became clear that, Russia is, trying, Putin, the guy in charge, is trying to do old, let's bring back the USSR type bullshit, NATO decided, you know what, this is exactly why we exist. And they decided to, well, most NATO nations, not all of them obviously, decided to assist Ukraine with funds, resources, military, logistical aid, not bodies and stuff actually fighting alongside them. And Russia was expecting a very easy win, which they would have absolutely won if the rest of the world wasn't behind Ukraine. So once Ukraine started getting, modern weapons, artillery, anti-air systems, and more and more tanks and training for more crews from other nations nearby, because the big reason why we weren't just handing them M1A1s or M1A2s is because, as Sarge here told me before, training them and teaching them how to upkeep these new tanks would be much more time consuming and expensive than just giving newer tanks to neighboring nations and having them give them their old Soviet equipment and tanks. In which case, that has worked out wonderfully, because Ukraine has been making great use of these T-72s, using them the same way Western nations, Western armored doctrines would be, using them as longer range pieces of equipment rather than charging in and trying to outflank and demolish their enemies with just sheer numbers, which now they could probably do with some success, but with a loss greater than anyone would be willing to tolerate, especially the Ukrainian people.
Here's the thing, and when I say this, take this as an American looking at the Ukraine war on the outside. This is a war that right now very logistically involves the rest of us. British, German, Czechoslovakian.
Czech and Slovakian, a while back they decoupled from each other.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I have to constantly remind myself of that, because I used to know a Czechoslovakian dude I played Reach with, and then he became a Czech. That wasn't supposed to be like a dig at anybody. That sounded really hostile the way I said it, but that's not what I meant.
He doesn't hate the
Slovakian side.
He doesn't hate the Czech people.
I actually know very little about Czechs and Slovakians, so I can't.
That's okay. So I'm in the same boat there.
Oh, pardon me.
When
I'm
you
gonna have
try
a coffee
to...
fit, so you go ahead.
So, right now, what I'm doing is more indicative of the gun and run style that the Russians would be employing, is just run up at your enemy, get in their face, scare them, and try to use your tank to maneuver on them. And in case you don't see the M60A3 and the M60A1 with Rise looking at me, I may have just fucked myself. Okay, let's see if I can get on his ass, get on him. Oh, this is... Oh, thank God somebody killed him. That legitimately saved me. Let's get into cover. Cover sounds nice. Well, there's a T-72. Don't worry, buddy. I'm sure when the Russians drag you out of storage, your time will come. Okay, but anyway. No, I am not taking these battles seriously. I'm just having fun with them. Trying to show off different doctrines that maybe use the tank in different ways and all that fun shit. But let's get back to the main point at hand, is why the T-72 seemingly sucks when the Russians are using it when they're the ones that built the damn thing. And I'm even gonna kind of touch on why the Russians aren't just flooding the field with T-Armadas and Su-35s and all the shit that we've seen in their parades. That, you know, we know they have some, but where are they? Well, quite frankly, the T-72 is still, well, in a lesser fashion now, but up until the start of the Ukraine war, was still a very major part of the Russian armored corps. The T-80UIs sucked. Most tanker crews preferred their old 72s and just kinda kept using them. Move on forward to the T-90s. Yeah, they're pretty good tanks. There's a good number of them in service too. Problem is, Russia doesn't actually have the funds to build these huge armored core units of these massively impressive T-14 armadas or shit like that. When it comes down to it, the reason why is just the ruble, up until they started exporting natural gas, was back in the early 2000s. Phil?
Yeah, pretty much.
Now, they had done it before, but they were upping the capacity. So, you know. And one thing that I kinda really burns my ass about this is when they say that the T-72 was designed to kill the Abrams. In truth, no. But in some ways it was. The T-72's main rival was definitely the M60 in that family of tanks. Mainly because the Chieftain was a good tank, but yeah, it had issues. So let's head up.
Yes.
Huh?
To say the least, yes.
Let's head over to the armor viewer, and I will show you what I mean by. So, our main upper glacis on this is a 2-stage glacis sloped at. Not gonna hold myself to any numbers here, but it's a pretty good slope. I'd say 60 to 70 degrees. That is me eyeballing it. If I'm wrong, I am wrong. The outer shell of the upper glacis is 80 millimeters, with the inner shell being 45. this is a pretty good frontal armor system for the upper glacis. The lower glacis over here sadly did not get the same treatment. It is a outer shell of 20mm with a cap over it at, I think, 115. This makes for a pretty good light armored tank, which is really weird for some. Light armor is subjective, first of all. Please don't take it that I'm saying that it is a light tank, but it is much lighter than, like I said previously, other MBTs in class. So we can kind of say for certain that most of the super heavy boys, or SHMBTs as some of the internet has called them. I don't take to calling them that. I find that redundant, but cool. SH and the SHMBT stands for super heavy fill, if you didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's kind of a dumb thing to constantly call it.
They put the Abrams and the Challenger in this, saying that the 70-ton tanks are way too big and cumbersome to use for small militaries. Well, yeah, they weren't really made for small militaries.
True.
And now we have rumors of the M1A3 having a fucking Mark 19 for the commander to fire remotely, which, that's terrifying.
Oh yeah, if true.
I'm all for it. Though it does kind of... there's still the coaxial machine gun. It does kind of... not the video for that. I will make... the Abrams is definitely going to get its own video on my channel whenever I feel like making it. I can't give you a good reason why I haven't yet. Which is kind of funny, because usually I'm all about...
Yeah, the Abrams is your favorite tank. Your first, tank game or whatever was a simulator where you learned how to operate and drive a fucking Abrams.
Well, the tutorial you were in a Sherman.
You know what I mean.
But the tutorial you were in a fucking Sherman. Oh my god, Desert Command just came back into my head. I remember that game now. Yeah, I probably logged in a couple casual I think I got that from an army recruitment office, to be honest.
I think... Who was it? I think your mom picked it up at a Goodwill. And it originally came from one of those, because that's what they used to, hey guys, you want to be a tanker? You get to drive a cool-ass big piece of fucking metal with big-ass guns on it.
I don't remember where I got it. I know it wasn't Goodwill, just because Goodwill hadn't come in yet.
Really? I thought that Goodwill had been here for, my entire life.
No, it was being renovated for, right before we moved in to, the day of, and the first, month. Before that, I don't remember what it was, because that strip used to be an Oldies. Or not an Oldies, no, I think it was an Oldies.
No, we never had an Oldies in town. Alright, everybody, this stream was gone from T-72 to figure out the history of our town.
No, there was a fucking grocery store there. I remember.
There was a grocery store there. It was like a...
I bought one of the Easy Shoppers when they liquidated it for $50.
I think it was Oh, whoops. Our town name, Town Grocery, I think is what it was called. Whoops! I almost doxed us.
Don't worry. I doubt anyone would know where that is, even if you.
True.
But I bought one of the easy shoppers for $50. I think I tried to drive it to school and it died, and I just left it.
The fuck is an easy shopper?
The fat wagons.
Ah, I like how that's how I discern what the fuck it is by you calling it a fucking fat wagon. Yeah, America doesn't have an obesity problem.
Actually, in front of a gun, criminal, or anything else, we have a fucking mental health problem.
That's the biggest thing. Yeah. We got a lot of
Anyway,
problems, but that's one of them. Anyway, yeah, tanks, they're cool.
the turret armor on this, the cheeks of the turret are at a very robust 225
They
millimeter.
really call them cheeks.
Yes.
That is fucking cute. So as you can see, the cheeks on this M1 Abrams just pans over to the Abrams, and it's just got like crappy little anime eyes like taped onto it, and it's just blushing.
Why are you like this?
Oh God, worth it.
And so the cheeks of the turret armor are at 225 millimeters, and the gun mantlet is at 280 millimeters. Fun fact, the cannon is, where is our cannon? It is 55 millimeters. And the log on the back, which is counting as spaced armor by World of Tanks, is 220 millimeters.
Damn. That's a chunky boy.
Your rear armor, your rear spaced armor width may vary. Which, fun fact, the log was not actually, it's not meant to be used as fucking spaced armor. It's made to kind of help get the tank, it's made to, like, if you get stuck, you can maybe help the tank pry itself out by, like, putting that under the tracks and giving it something to get grip on. Made is a generous term here, found.
Yeah.
I don't know what you want from me. It's a fucking piece of wood, mate. So it blocking a shot to save you is less likely than the dad in your life coming back from that cigarette trip.
Hey, listen, I don't have to worry about that because my dad's dead.
Right, dark corners of this video we go. Tally
You know better
fucking
than to bring
ho.
up dads around me. I'm always gonna say that. My dad's in the above ground mausoleum.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
So my jab at a internet joke aside, some things that the T-72 actually oddly excels at, it is a fantastic scout and slash and run vehicle. Sadly, it's never used in this role, at least by the Russians. And they're trying to fight a war from like the 20th century with 21st century tech, and it's just not working.
Oh yeah. It is quite the fucking blunder.
And the reason why it's not working isn't because the T-72 is ass. It's because Putin just doesn't know what he's doing, because he apparently is micromanaging the shit out of this.
That and every single capable general that actually had combat experience and experience leading troops, he sent to the front lines, and they were immediately assassinated by Ukrainian snipers. Also, the First Guards riflemen were wiped out. The Russian Navy's flagship was fucking sunk. Oh man, so many fuck ups. Not to mention, what was that? The Chechen dictator or whatever, his right hand man, that murderous douchebag, and his quote unquote elite troops were wiped out as soon as they entered Ukrainian territory.
Oh yeah, no, they were.
Like
They were.
big ass convoy. What was it like 200 troops or some shit? Wiped the fuck out, ambushed. Just a whole ass huge line of trucks just burnt out. Amazing.
Speaking of convoys, I want to bring two things to light. While the world says that, oh hey, we're not involved troop-wise, which for the most part I believe, there are 3 instances that make me question if some special forces aren't operating in the AO.
You know for a fact the CIA's got some boys in there. There's no
I'm
way they don't.
I'm thinking SEALs.
SEALs, that's a good bet. I am
SAS
absolutely
is a pretty
certain,
safe bet too.
I'm absolutely certain that Mossad's got some dudes in there too.
Oh, definitely. But anyway, um, our little rant about that aside is here's the thing. The that Ukrainian convoy they showed rolling into Bakhmut recently.
Oh yeah.
I can already see people, but Sarge, that was headed by T-72, so they're using them as like frontline troops. No, they're using them as vanguards. The term vanguard doesn't actually. It's weird, and I'm getting shot. It's not referring to a certain area in the guard line, it's a role. So like if you're a vanguard, you may be the primarily responsible for making sure, say, a convoy gets somewhere. Totally random example.
They destroy the turret controls.
Sarge, I am good.
This is okay. I'm fine.
I'm gonna go to the restroom. I will be back.
Alright, well,
You go ahead and continue. Especially I'm glad to have been here. I hope that my ramblings made some kind of fucking sense. And, goodbye.
alright. Well, I will see you when you get back. I'll probably be online.
Alright.
Alright, so let me go on and just talk about some of the more notable T-72 things going on. Right now, Ukraine is using these to help fight for their freedom. If I had the capacity, I'd be giving them 1,000,000 more. Why not give them Abrams, as I said, well, as Phil said that I said earlier, which I did. You can't just rip out old tanks and throw in new ones. You have to train troops. You have to get people ready to use these. You have to get infrastructure ready. In terms of the Abrams, it uses a turbine diesel engine. That's a new fuel source that we're going to need. We're going to need ways to resupply it, refuel it, rearm it, all that. And that's just shit that we don't have in Ukraine. America has it. And before everyone goes, oh, just... If we're going to send Abrams over there, we may as well crew them ourselves and just act as Ukrainians' Armored Corps. It would be faster, it would probably be cheaper, and it would be more effective. Not saying Ukrainian tank crews aren't baller as hell, because they are. Just saying that putting a Ukrainian tank crew that's used to crewing some old Soviet T-72, T-72A, T-72 Ural, like I'm driving here in this game, is always going to outperform if you were to take them and put them in like an Abrams, a Challenger, Chieftain, a Leopard 2A1, a KF-51 Panther. These tanks, like these newer tanks, yeah, they would be a massive game changer on certain areas of the battlefield. Weapons don't always win wars, but they certainly help keep from losing. The HIMARS is one of those that we've been able to give them that is just outstanding. And getting off of my soapbox, the T-72 isn't a bad tank by anyone's imagination. It's just It was made for another war. So I am glad that you have come with me on this rant. I'm Sarge, and I just did the wrong thing. I will see you on the next Sarge's Recap.